putting every kind of car imaginable through our tire squealing, sheet metal quivering, eyelid fluttering performance tests is, as you can imagine, more fun than finding out your fiancé's parents have a large Ferrari collection that needs regular exercise. But every so often, particularly with cars named after, oh, the devil, there emerges at the test track a potential for mechanical harakiri that verges on the terrifying. Such was the case recently when we flew to Milan, Italy, to test the latest Lamborghini Diablo VT. The VT indicates the four-wheel drive version. This last Diablo in a decade of flamboyant, some dare say outrageous sports cars first introduced in 1990 is certainly the best Diablo. The VT is, curiously, a very high-powered four-wheel drive beast. Situated amidships is the biggest, baddest V12 engine we've ever tested in a Diablo. For this 2000 model, Lamborghini has lengthened the stroke by 0.16 inch, lightened the crankshaft, used lighter and stronger titanium connecting rods, and updated the old 16-bit engine control system to a more powerful 32-bit unit. As a result, peak engine output has been promoted to 543 horsepower at 7,100 RPM, 20 more than found in the last Diablo. Torque is up 11 pound-feet to 457 at 5,800 RPM. Horsepower freaks take note, this latest Diablo now has more horsepower than 4 four-cylinder Toyota Camrys. Hey, where else can you get these vital comparisons? Despite the fact the rear tires Z-rated Pirelli P0s, good for more than 200 mph are so wide that, at first glance, they appear to form a solid rolling pin of rubber across the rear of the car. They're 13.2 inches wide, 543 horses and 457 pound-feet of torque can reduce them to pudding. To counter that possibility, the Diablo VT's four-wheel drive system makes perfect sense. A viscous coupling transfers power to the front wheels if the rears slip. The rest of the time, the Diablo prowls about as a rear drive car. At most, 28% of engine torque is routed to the front wheels. There are no levers to switch or buttons to punch to engage this four-wheel drive system, and during routine driving, you'd never know this wild Italian was a four-wheeler. Perform a drag strip launch, however, and you'll instantly realize the Diablo VT is not a rear driver. Usually, those of us who drive in hard acceleration tests rely on a touch of wheel spin to get the car moving in the quickest manner. In a four-wheel drive car with sticky tires, it is almost impossible to get those rears spinning in a hard launch, unless the car has a system that allows some initial rear wheel spin before the fronts get the juice. An example of one such car is the 1997 Porsche 911 Turbo S. Hold the gas pedal down to create 4,500 RPM in that sports car, then drop the clutch, and the rear tires will spin for a moment before power is directed to the front wheels. The tires dig in and you're off. In that Porsche, we've recorded 0 to 60 mph blasts in an amazingly fast 3.7 seconds. But we've tested just one Diablo VT before, C/D, September 1994, because they are very tough to come by. Just 23 were sold in the US in 1999, apparently to people who own small countries or athletic shoe companies, at a price of about $275,000. At that test, we declined to risk the drop clutch technique, figuring the Diablo's massive tires, 235/40 ZR17S up front and 335/35 ZR17S at the rear, and substantial weight, 3,900 pounds, would result in gobs of traction and no wheel spin. More to the point, there's a good chance that revving the engine and dumping the clutch would fry the clutch and possibly destroy it, and we did not want to find out what that repair bill would look like. A good guess is somewhere in the vicinity of $9,000. Turns out we were half right. The Diablo can, with the right driver, survive drop clutch launches. We watched 3 such feats performed remarkably by Lamborghini's own test driver, Mario Fazzanito. You were expecting whom? Jim Scouten. After Fazzanito performed 3 flawless wheel-spinning launches in a grey Diablo, a writer for another magazine who was on hand decided he'd like to acquire his own test numbers. Faisanato got out of the Diablo and instructed the magazine rider to drop the clutch while the engine was revving between 6,000 and 7,000 RPM. Faisanato also warned him, if you make a mistake and don't get wheel spin, you'll destroy the clutch in 2 tries. The rider drove to the staging area, held the revs at the instructed point, then dumped the clutch. Instead of rear wheel spin, we were treated to the nauseating sound, and then the smell, of an overstressed clutch that was busy producing nightmarish blue smoke. But the Diablo still drove fine, so after performing one more, less stressful launch, the rider parked it. We were originally scheduled to test that same day, but Ferrari's Formula 1 team decided it needed the track more than we did, so we tested the following day at Pirelli's test track in Vizela. On our way there in a fresh yellow Diablo, we chatted with Faisanato and marveled at the Diablo's interior comfort. Diablos are not yet ready to be considered luxury vehicles, but they are unexpectedly pleasant automobiles. According to Lamborghini's new chairman, Giuseppe Greco, Diablo owners drive their cars an average of 6,500 miles a year, 3 times farther than they drove them 10 years ago. That suggests that customers are happy with the continual improvements Lamborghini has made beneath that flamboyant body. This year the Diablo's comfort level is increased again, thanks to a host of interior and mechanical refinements. The front suspension was redesigned to widen the interior footbox and allow for larger, easy-to-use pedals. To accomplish this, the front frame section was widened to move the suspension mounting points outward, and the front track was increased 2.8 inches. Each of the 3 pedals was widened 1.6 inches. Also new are the seats and the climate control system, and the dash and interior trim have been revised. The seats now have adjustable backrests. Previous Diablos had fixed backrests, and are wonderfully supportive. They feel like stiff racing shells that have been given a thin covering of foam and leather. Lamborghini says the new automatic climate control system has more cooling capacity and is easier to use. It certainly worked well, we set a temperature and never touched it again. There are also several conveniences sprinkled throughout the interior that we didn't expect in an Italian exotic. Behind the seats are small storage compartments, map lights reside on the rear of the center console, and there's even a pair of code hooks. The dash and the center console are covered in carbon fiber, a styling cue that reminds the owner that the car's body panels except for the aluminum doors and steel roof are now made of the same carbon fiber found in the world's best, and safest, racing cars. Lamborghini says the new body is lighter, but since the new front suspension and climate control system added weight, overall vehicle weight is the same as it was last year. There's also a newly styled nose, which to us is not an improvement over last year's beak. At Vizela, Faisanato performed the first acceleration runs. That way, we'd get some highly competitive numbers before yours truly began some experiments in which the clutch might wind up needing a doctor. Faisanato staged out of view, but we could hear the launch and knew immediately something was not right. The engine revved, but we couldn't hear any wheel spin. He rolled into the pits and said the clutch of this test car had been worn to the point that wheel spin was not possible. We would later learn that our test car had spent nearly all of its 1,000 miles in the hands of ham-fisted journalists. A new or at least unabused clutch is a must to get the quickest acceleration runs. Even without the optimal launch, the Diablo ripped off some impressive numbers 0 to 60 in 4.3 seconds. 0.2 seconds faster than a Ferrari 360 Medina can manage. By 100 miles per hour, at 8.2 seconds, the Diablo is 2.3 seconds ahead of the Ferrari. As holy as those numbers sound, we know the latest Diablo is potentially quicker. For those willing to risk a clutch, it might well turn the 0 to 60 trip in the mid 3-second range. We did not get a chance to perform a top speed or skid pad test. Lamborghini figures the Diablo tops out at 208 miles per hour. Lateral acceleration on the VT we tested in '94 was 0.89 G, but we expect the new car to make about 0.95 G with the wider front track and revised shock and spring rates. What amazes us most about the Diablo, however, are its benign handling characteristics. We wouldn't call it nimble, or tossable, but it is immensely stable and forgiving. Overcooking any corner results in mild understeer and never any unwanted fishtailing. Thanks to the four-wheel drive, an overly aggressive right foot won't smoke the rears when exiting a corner. The massively powerful V12 is a huge part of the Diablo driving experience. It feels similar to a Viper V10 engine in that there's absolutely gobs of low-end grunt and little need to shift. But unlike the Viper, the Diablo rips all the way to a 7,500 RPM redline, which makes the Diablo's V12 one of the most flexible engines built today. Prices have not been set yet, but don't expect much change from a $300,000 check. For the current model year, only the VT fixed roof model is available. Considering the laundry list of new stuff, we were surprised to hear that Lamborghini will produce an all-new Diablo in 2001. We expected Audi ownership to pay dividends, and so it has. A second, all-new Lamborghini is now on the planning board's a V10 model that will be priced to compete with the Ferrari 360 Medina. It should debut within 3 years. The hope is that the new car could result in annual production going from 250 cars to about 1,100. The Diablo's price can make anyone gasp for air, but hey, it has code hooks. And few cars can make it to the dry cleaners faster.